welcome to Next Level Life. I believe this teaching we're about to bring you is going to help you achieve the goals, the dreams, the visions that you have. And we're going to talk about improving your thought life. We're going to teach you about how to cast a vision out for your life. Lots of great things you're going to be taught. So make sure you watch and tune in at the close for more information. Let's go now and watch this teaching.
Well, let me share a couple of things with you as tonight is our last night. And let me just give you a couple of thoughts about increase, and then I want to get into some additional laws, overall laws for success. So some of these I want to just share, and I don't have notes up here on these particular points, so you might want to write these down. You always have to be willing to learn. His whole series there was called Position to Prosper. You got to put yourself in a position, because if you're going to live life at the next level, and I believe everybody's got a next level to live life at, no matter where you're at. If I didn't believe that, then I'm in the wrong business. I need to do something else. But I believe everybody's got an area that they can grow in, but you got to be willing to learn. You've got to be willing to be taught, and I believe you're only one teaching away from another level. You might have learned something in that 15-minute clip that you didn't know before. You might hear something, hopefully you have heard something over these last 4 sessions and tonight the 5th. Maybe it's about getting your life in order and getting your house in order like we learned a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it's creating a vision board and all of those things. This class is only going to do you as good as you put it into practice. That's true, right? Come on, nod your head, right? Sundays only do you as good as you put it into practice, these things that we're teaching. So you got to be willing to learn. You got to be teachable. Don't think that you know it all. The older I get, the more I realize I don't know very much. There is so much to learn. There is so much to know. And you're not going to get it. You're not getting it from Netflix. You're not getting it from ABC and NBC. You got to be diligent to learn these things. I'm not dissing those. They just got to have their place and can't be all that you do. The areas that you don't know, you got to get around people who do know. I shared with you last week that And part of what I want to do a little bit tonight is to tell a few stories and share a little bit more. But I shared with you last week about how I ended up at the industrial company that I ended up back in the 90s primarily, in the late 80s and 90s. And I was not a mechanical guy. I didn't have that knowledge. I didn't have the ability to get, it just isn't the way my brain works. I'm not a construction guy. I can't cut the wood to frame the wall and put the drywall on and get it. It isn't me. And the same thing in the mechanical. I didn't understand mechanics. I didn't understand all of that. I mean, I learned some, but I was dealing with engineers and I was dealing with guys who went to school for all of that. And so what I had to do is I had to go hire people that I could take with me onto the job site that did understand it. And then we got into all fluid power technology. I didn't even know what fluid power was. And I had to, I learned some basics, but they were trying to teach us all this. I can't even remember. I tried, I don't even remember what I didn't know, but it wasn't, but I hired guys who were fluid power specialists, and they would go out on the job site, or I'd send them out on the job site to deal with that. So my point is you got to get around people who do know things. You might have to have people in your life financially that do know those things, and that's important that you do that. It is possible, particularly, this might apply to some more than others, but if some of you have a desire to start a business, well, that can be depending on what you want to do and how you are forming your life, that can be a good thing. That you've got to learn about doing that. There are, and I'm not going to get into all the specifics tonight, but It's something we can talk about at other times. There's a lot of tax benefits that you have by starting a business. If you own real estate or want to own real estate, that's a huge market. You ought to own that inside of a business. You ought to own that inside of a limited liability corporation, because then when you do that, it opens up a whole realm of tax benefits to you. You can write off your mileage, and you can buy a car in the business, and you can write off part of your cell phone and office space and all of those things that you're going to do anyway, but you can do it legally when you have that business. If you have a business or you're going to do that, I'm just sharing thoughts. Is this okay? Yeah. All right. Yes.
Also, if you're a minority, a woman, or a veteran, there's tons of grant money that's out there.
Absolutely. To start a business. Absolutely. You got to, and you say, well, I don't know. You got to go find out. Knowledge is available faster and quicker. You know, we can do more right here than they used to do with a room full of computers. And so you got to figure that out. One of the best things that I did when I set up a business was I began to just deal with a CPA, a certified public accountant, because they know stuff I don't know. I didn't go to school to be an accountant. I took two accounting classes. I struggled in both of them. The professor, I think, passed me just to get me out, you know, because it wasn't my forte. I did other things financially, but I didn't understand all of that. So, but it'll save you lots and lots of headaches and problems to deal with a quality accountant in those things. If you want to increase, you need to learn to live beneath your means. If you make $50,000 a year and you spend $50,000 on a car, you just gave up 1 year of freedom. You're now going to work 1 total year just to have a car. You need to live beneath your means. Lisa and I didn't do that very well when we were younger. If you're young in this room, let me tell you, if you get a raise, don't go just, buy a better car. Don't just go buy a new truck. Don't do that. You got to live beneath your means on those things. You ought to save 20% of your income and live on 80%. Figure that out. Well, I don't know how I'd ever do that. Well, figure it out. Spend the day thinking about it, getting pencil and paper out. What can I do here? How can I do that? It's real simple. You either got to make more or spend less. Okay? There's your high-level finance degree right there. You came for 5 weeks to learn make more or spend less. You can make more. You can. I think a lot of people, either you have a side business, maybe it's investment, maybe it's real estate, maybe you're driving Uber on the weekends. When Lisa and I were in Florida late last year and caught a lot of Ubers and Lyft rides, there were guys that were, I've worked, 25 years in the medical profession, and I'm a medical salesman, and I do all this, but man, I make extra money on the weekends. Well, if you make extra money, don't go spend it unless you got to pay your bills with it. Invest it. Don't just go, oh man, I got this money. I can go to the mall this weekend. I can go do that. You got to be disciplined. You got to. There's a mindset. Bishop Jakes talked about it. You got to change the mindset. Have that second stream of income. Set it aside. Follow people online that can teach you things. That can be true about finances. It can be true about marriage. I don't understand in the world that we live in today why people want information. They say they want things to be better, but they're doing nothing to educate themselves about it. I don't understand. You want to? Well, I wouldn't know where to begin to buy rental property. By 11 o'clock tonight, you can watch 2 hours on YouTube of somebody who's done it, teaching you some steps. And don't just go to one. You go to multiple places on there. But you figure it out. You just start figuring things out. If you're trying to figure out relationship issues and what could I do better, information is at your fingertips. Figure it out. You're not getting the answers from the world. They're not teaching us how to have better relationships. They're not teaching us about necessarily from the perspective we're teaching it from kingdom perspective of how to have better relationships and better friendships and better marriages. And really just, if I could say it this simply, you are who you are, but just be a better version of you. Isn't that good? Just be a better version. Be kind. Be nice. Be caring. Be compassionate. Just be a better version of the things you do well. Just do them better and put yourself in position for those things. I have a saying that's on my computer. It's also on my desk at home. And Steve Harvey says it and said it's one of his mottos. You can't out-faith me, you can't out-believe me, and you can't out-hustle me. So you can have the first two, but if you don't ever get up and go do something, you can't out-hustle me either. Some of those authors and writers and speakers, most of them are Christian. Some of them may not be. Some of them teach about real estate. One guy, he's taught me how to hustle. That it's going to take 10 times the effort that you think it's going to take to really be successful. I think I'm going to put, 10 hours a month into my side hustle, into my business, into whatever. You're going to have to put 100 hours. You're going to have to work it. You're going to have to figure it out. You're going to have to go after it. It's what I try to, teach my grandson about basketball. I'm tired. I don't want to go shoot baskets, Paw. Okay. I promise you there's another 8th grader out on the court right now shooting free throws. And you're going to be playing him next week. He's learning how to drive the basketball while you want to play on the computer. You can play on the computer, just don't expect to be as good as him when you get on the court next week. Yeah. Because he put the time in the gym. Right. He put the effort in. He did those things. So, and those are hard lessons. Yeah. But some of you are 40 and you haven't learned that lesson yet. Yeah. I've dealt with a lot of people. They haven't figured that out yet of those things. So let me just read a couple of things that I printed out. And some guys that I do connect with on social media. I don't use social media much for entertainment. I try to learn something from it. Here's something I was going to tell you. Whatever area of discipline you are lacking, you want to be better at. Maybe it's your health, maybe it's your marriage, maybe it's relationship, whatever it might be. Here is what I'm telling you on the last night. Do it for 30 days. Discipline yourself for 30 days. Whatever that means to you. It means something to each of us differently. What if you did intermittent fasting for 30 days? Here's one guy. He said, what would happen if for 1 month, now understand he's writing to non-Christians, you had no drugs, alcohol, or mind-numbing substances. Ignored all news and politics. For 30 days you read something every single day. What if you fasted for 16 hours daily? That's the 16-8 intermittent fast. What if you exercised 3 to 4 times a week for 30 days? Anybody think you can do that for 30 days? Some of you aren't so sure. Then come on, that's why you're in Next Level Life. You can get started. If you go home tonight and you haven't exercised for a couple of weeks, go home and do 1 push-up. Well, I did 1. Do 1 sit-up, and then go to bed. Tomorrow, do 2. Do 2. Well, that doesn't sound like it, but you started. You're training your mind. I'm in a mindset. It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to work out at 7 o'clock every night for 30 days. Y'all are looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm telling you. Consumed no junk food for 30 days. Would your life improve? Yes. You got off sugar for 30 days? We did it for 21 days on fasting. For 30, no sugar. No sugar. Awfully quiet. Your brain gets comfortable in everyday surroundings. Growth comes outside your comfort zone. Take a different route when you're driving. I do that a lot. Bounce ideas off of people you're not all that familiar with. Listen to different music. Become familiar with the unfamiliar. The lack of discipline ruins most. The lack of curiosity ruins most. The lack of self-awareness ruins most. Too many options ruins most. Self-doubt ruins most. Not being coachable ruins most. The need for being known ruins most. You gotta pay attention to these things. You gotta make sure your mental health is important. You gotta pay attention to your mental health. You gotta sleep properly. You gotta exercise regularly. You gotta drink water. These are next level life things that most people don't do. You gotta make sure that you do that. You gotta have access to the right information, and that's why you're here in this. There's a difference between being poor and being broke. If you don't have money, you're broke. It's temporary. Being poor is your mindset, your mentality, your demeanor. It's internal and contagious, self-limiting, and a broken spirit. Things that'll change your life. Stop watching the news, limit TV time, get rid of your card note, log off Facebook, stop gossiping, work out more often, write in a journal, spend time with the Lord, spend time in the sunlight, and unfollow negative people. Amen? Now, I'm stretching you a little bit, but there are guys that are saying this kind of stuff. I don't know where our world's headed and what they're going to be teaching. Here's what he said he learned in school. He learned photosynthesis. He learned how to identify different dinosaurs. He learned how to get permission to use the bathroom. He learned long division. He learned trigonometry, and he learned Shakespeare. What he wishes he would have learned is personal finance, nutrition, logic and reasoning, how to think, how to socialize, and fitness. He said, those are the things I needed when I got out of school, not knowing all the different dinosaurs. So, and in the midst of all that, you got to have the character to maintain the level that you feel like you're going to. You got to have character. You got to be able to handle situations and deal with people. And I believe people skills, that's something they should have taught in school. Many people lack people skills. They just think that they can say whatever, do whatever, act however, and it'll be okay. And you can act however you want. You just can't choose the consequence. Go in tomorrow, tell your boss exactly what you think. Rattle it off, tell him all the bad things. See how it goes for you. You don't choose consequences. About a week ago, a basketball player kind of got in an argument with his coach on the sideline, and the coach went to put him back in the game, and he looked at his coach and he said, "No, I'm not going in." Next game, he's suspended. You don't get to do that. You can't. Not. You do get to. You just don't get to choose whether you play the next game. So, those are decisions. Everything, this is one of the things I want you to take away from this class, is everything in your life is a decision. Everything and when I was thinking about writing a book, this was one of the things that I wanted to include in it or make it the whole book. Your life is a decision. What time you get up tomorrow morning, how you handle the morning, what you do, whether you exercise or not, whether you eat better, it's all a decision. And you have to do some introspection into your life to say, you know what? I'm going to do better. I need to work on this. My flesh, what my body tells me it wants, it doesn't control me anymore. I get to decide. I get to choose. And if you'll do it for 30 days, you'll start putting yourself in a pattern of this is success. This is what it's like to feel good during the day. I don't have all that sugar in my system. I don't have all that the stuff that goes with that and all the medical issues because I'm taking control of my life and I'm not allowing this stuff to be in control of me anymore. Is that true? Yes. You get to decide. You get to make the choice of whether or not you're going to live any area of your life at the next level. I get to choose what kind of employer I'm going to be. I'm going to choose what kind of pastor I'm going to be, what kind of motivator I'm going to be, what kind of influencer I'm going to be. I get to choose that. I get to pay attention to that, and I get to decide what I want to do with my day and how I want it to go. Those are choices, and I know stuff happens, and I get all that, but then I get to choose how do I react to all of that. I may not choose everything that happens to me. Stuff happens, but I do get to choose my reaction to all of that. Amen. Does that make sense? Amen. So those are some things about increase overall. These last this last segment, I started this last week, and I want to go back and I want to give you, as I've thought about what has worked for me, what have I tried to put into practice on a regular basis that has helped me to make the right decisions, to do the right things, to do the best that I can do in my situations and in my life. I want to live at the next level. And so I've come up with 7 laws. I've learned these from different ones, some of the authors that are on there, some of the speakers, some of the things that I've formulated on my own, some principles as well. But I want to give these to you, and I gave you just a couple last week, and I've gone back and I fine-tuned some things. But I want you to get this, and as we wrap up this class, these are things that I find that are very, very important that I think we need to pay attention to. We've learned a lot during these sessions. I've given you a sheet of paper I'd like before the class is over tonight, if you would fill out that white sheet of paper and give some answers there as to what meant the most, what would you like if we did another class, what topics would you like covered, and what might help you even a little bit more. But we started with how we think, and how important it is to transform the way we think. And really that's it in a nutshell right there. And then we talked about vision boards and goal setting. We talked about getting your house in order. That class only works for you if you've done something with it. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands. How many have at least cleaned out a closet, underneath your bed, one spot in the garage, being able to park your car in the garage? That'd be huge for the summer. And then last week we learned about areas of business and how to operate faith in the marketplace and how important that is. And then I started talking about these laws. So let's jump into this a little bit tonight. The first one I said last week was the law of excellence. The law of excellence says that it is the ability to do the very best with what you have been given. And what I said about that was excellence isn't that you got $1 million to go spend on a house, or you got money to go do something. That's not excellence. It's taking care of what you have. If you have a certain gift, your call is that you need to use that to the very best of your ability. That's excellence. That decision will cause you to stand out. Others don't always applaud you for excellence, but that's not why we do it. Some people will be mad because you're doing it better than they are. That's true. That's true. When I was with the company I was with many years ago, it was back in the day, this makes me sound really old, but it's when computers were really being used in business, and we were doing presentations and all of that on the computer. Now you do it on your phone, but back then it took a lot of work. And so I'd go to these meetings and we'd have to give presentations for our branch. I always came, again, I'm going to sound really old, with an overhead projector. How many of you even know what that is? All right. It's all I had. It's what we had. We weren't doing this fancy stuff and all of that. We took one slide off and put another one on. But I was the only one showing up with it. And I was the only one that took the time to put all that together. And then when I started doing it, and they're like, the bosses were like, hey, Turpin, that's pretty good, Well, the next meeting, 2 more were doing it. Then the next meeting, 3 more were doing it, you know? Why? Because you set the bar higher and you operate in excellence. You just distinguish yourself in those things. Then we talked about the law of favor, and Bishop Jakes mentioned that a little bit in his teaching. The law of favor is approval, support, goodwill, above and beyond, kindness, and preference. One of the laws that you need to believe for is that God is going to show you uncommon favor. Favor that not everybody else gets. Favor isn't necessarily that you get a close parking spot. Sometimes, if there is one, I take the one far away for 2, y'all going to think I'm silly, for 2 reasons. 1, I need the exercise. Okay? And 2, I'm going to sow it to somebody else. I'm giving that spot to somebody else. So, favor means to endorse. God's favor is endorsing you. Favor opens doors you cannot open on your own. Favor is a secret weapon that you need to learn to believe for, confess that you have favor operating on your life. Another part of our story is, and I told a little bit about the company that I went to work for a couple of years after college and how God gave us favor on that. But then, when all that was coming to an end, I just won't go into the details, but you never know where favor is going to happen. Amen. And so I'm on a football field one night. My son's playing. Game's over. I stay around, just helping load equipment, do whatever. And a guy that I barely know calls me over and starts talking to me about a business idea and some things. And I didn't even know what all he was talking about. But I don't, as best I remember, I don't think we did anything then. Then it turns out that he becomes my son's Little League coach. And let me back up. He was my son's Little League coach. That's where I first met him. And then it was on the football field that he called me over and talked about a business idea that we ended up doing together. And God worked it out that it was very favorable. So my point is, God can open the doors that you can't open. And He can do things that you don't even see coming. And that favor, as Bishop Jakes in that series is talking about, it can extend down to 1,000 generations. You say, well, I don't know about 1,000. Well, believe for 1 or 2. Believe your grandkids are going to be glad that they're in your lineage. Be glad, do things that are going to set that up there. So that law of favor is very, very important. Let me go on to another one. I didn't get to this one last week. This to me is huge. And this is where I think people miss it a lot in their life. It is called the law of honor. There is a huge lack of honor in the world today. So if you operate with this and you honor people that are in your life in different positions, God will reward you for those things. Honor means to regard or treat someone with admiration and respect. It means, I think I have another one. Honor means to weigh heavily, to highly esteem and respect the opinion or office of another. Now, a lot of people like for their opinion to be known. They want, because they think that what they think about a matter is all that needs to be said. And I want to tell you that there is a reward for giving honor. I didn't write this guy's name down on that list, but John Bevere wrote a lot about honor and honor's reward. And it's how you attract God's favor and blessing. And honor, you might write this down, honor is the bridge for access. Who you dishonor says more about you than it does about the person. You have to, it says honor is the bridge for access. If you want access to someone, you need to show honor to them. Excellence is the bridge for continual access. There are people that God has assigned you to be a part of their life. You got to know who those people are. You got to know that there are people that God has specifically put in your life. There's always different groups. There are ones that God is telling you to bless, and there are people that are in your life, God ordained, that God has put there to bless you. But it goes both ways. A lot of people are just looking for the ones that are there to bless them. And they're not looking for who are those that have been put in their life that they are to bless. Now, when I talk about the law of honor and honoring those, everybody gets treated with respect. Everybody gets treated with honor. And the proof of a man's character is how do they treat people that can do absolutely nothing for them. And you watch how they do that. It says, and some of this I'm reading from Mike Murdoch, who you were introduced to last week, and he talks a lot about honor. He says, honor is the seed for access into any environment on earth. Honor decides who desires you, accepts you, and rewards you. Honor will grow in every environment in every single season of your life. Honor is the... he said you got to study the law of honor around you. Study honor as a seed of respect and recognition. Honor will compensate and silence all the doubts about every other weakness in your life. Honor will take you further than genius and all your experiences in your life. Jesus judged others by their willingness to show honor. Mary demonstrated honor when she washed the feet of Jesus. He says honor has a sound. So does dishonor. Listen for the sound of honor. Listen to how people talk about other people when they're not around. Honor has a sound in family conversations, TV shows, news reporters. You've got to understand that honor is crucial in these things. Evaluate, he says, people by their code of honor. Who have they chosen to honor through their words, their time, or their friendship? Who have they chosen to dishonor, ignore, or trivialize? Whose voice have they chosen to trust? Diligence in the workplace is proof of honor. Diligence is immediate action to an instruction. Delayed obedience is the proof of dishonor. When your kids don't obey you the first time, they've dishonored you. True? And this is hard, but you didn't come here to just hear everything you've always heard. Honor is the bridge to any season you would like to enter. Honor is the seed for that access. If you want to succeed with your life, you'll be able to trace it to those you chose to honor. If you fail with your life, you can be traced to a person you chose to dishonor. When I was given the opportunity, again, favor showed up through a guy that came and spoke here, and he told me about this preacher in Chicago named Bill Winston. And he said, you need to meet him. You would like him. So Lisa and I go to Chicago. You got to put time in. We spent our own money. Went to Chicago to visit this guy that knew of Pastor Winston, really didn't know him that well. And so he says, I'm going to drive you over to his church. Let's see if he's in. Okay, so we get in his car and we drive over. And he has just left for the airport to go to a meeting, but his assistant comes out and meets us and shows us around the building, treats us very nice. And so he said, I know Pastor Winston would like to meet you. He said, and I asked him, I said, would he ever come speak in Louisville? He said, write me a letter. So I wrote him a letter, and it wasn't, I don't know, maybe it was 6 months later. Pastor Winston shows up here back around 07, 08, somewhere in that time frame. And then we started going up there. We told him we want to come and sit in your services. So we'd go up, and we weren't having Wednesday night service a lot of times, so Lisa and I would travel up there and just getting to know him. So then we were able to set up some meetings. Well, when I got the opportunity to meet him, I'm hesitant to tell you, we brought him a gift. Why? Because I wanted to honor the man. He was giving me his time. So we brought him a gift. In fact, every time I go, we do that. We don't do it just for him. We do it in other situations as well. I'm not looking for applause. I'm not looking for him to say, "Oh, you're the great." Has no idea. It doesn't matter. Sometimes I don't even get to give it to him. Sometimes I got to give it to somebody to give to him. See, a lot of people get offended by that. Well, he didn't even come out and talk to me. Did you ever read the story of Naaman getting healed of leprosy? And he just about missed his miracle because he got offended at those things. Does that make sense? So there's an honor to that. And your reward, when you have your rewards are going to be determined by the problems you solve for other people. I'm not looking to be somebody up there. I'm not looking for any. I'm just looking to, I'm just glad somebody's teaching me something. I'm just glad to be allowed in the room where stuff goes on. But you can't dishonor that. It'll kill your access. There's been people who have been through this ministry over 21 years that, would get mad about something and all that, and they'd be dishonoring and they'd be gossiping and all that. You don't get a lot of access when you do that. You just don't. We're not going to spend a lot of time together when there's dishonor in there. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm just saying I've learned. You just can't operate in that regard. People, in some of you, if you want to be in ministry or you're a ministry leader or whatever, a lot of people get a platform and they think it's their platform. It's not your platform. It's just not. It's the house's platform. Well, I'm going to take it and I'm going to do with it what I want. You don't get to do that. It's not the way it works. And then to take it and not be diligent over it, not treat it like it's somebody else's. The Bible is very clear that he who is faithful over that which belongs to somebody else, that's how you get rewarded. That's how things come to you. You're not doing it for glory. You're not doing it for fame. You're not doing it for money. You're being honorable to those things. I can tell you, I'm just maybe I ought to teach this more to ministry leaders, but a lot of times when people get offended and they leave a ministry and then they're out there somewhere, you'll find out that all of a sudden they've reconnected out away from the thing that they got offended. But they're still offended. They're just all gathering now to talk about their offense. And they're together. I see them post pictures that they're having meetings, and it's like, well, and this is from years ago. I don't think they're talking about us. I could care less. I'm just saying that spirit will draw people together. That spirit of dishonor, that spirit of offense. I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm just saying that there's something wrong sometimes. You gotta watch how you handle those situations. When I worked in business and my boss would come in, there were people that worked for me that did not like him. I didn't care for all his decisions. I never dishonored him, particularly to those, well, not at all, but I would never have done it to the people that worked for me, because now they know that I've got issues with him, and so my dishonor, if they did like him, now I've spread something that they didn't have any business knowing. Right? Never tell your problem to somebody that can't solve it. Write that down. That's the word. Don't tell your problem to people that can't solve it. Because when you do, you're gossiping. Because they can't help you. They can't fix it. Law of honor is a really, really big deal. But I'm going to move on. But I encourage you to go out and read about it and understand. And sometimes you'll do things. I can remember when the very first job I had out of college was in the same kind of industrial field, and that company was owned by a family, and they're just, long story, it didn't make it. It went through bankruptcy. But that family had a lot more than I did. They, even through the bankruptcy, they were the owners. They should. And I was out one day, and the Lord said, and I knew this guy liked watches. And the Lord spoke to me. I was out one day shopping. And I'm, not making anything. This is back in the 80s. The Lord said, I want you to buy him a watch. I said, Lord, I'm not. Let's just be clear. I am not buying him a watch. He's bankrupting the company. And, I knew I was, watching it happen. I couldn't do anything about it. And he said, I want you to buy him a watch. He gave you a job. And I did for a couple of years, before it really started falling apart. So I went and I bought him a watch. And I had to get my attitude right. But it wasn't, it was out of honor. It was out of saying, you know what? It doesn't have anything to do with the fact he has more than I do. That's immaterial. It's that God told me to do it. And I don't have all the watches I want, but I have several. And I'm going to have more because that's the thing I like. So the thing I like, you know what I do? I give them away. I was walking through a sanctuary one time, not ours, but a different church sanctuary. I had a nice watch on. I'm walking by, a guy walks by me. I get about this far by him. The Lord says, go back and give him your watch. I said, I am not. God and I have these discussions. I wasn't even going to have a conversation. I walked out the door and I don't know, whatever. I went to the bookstore, whatever. But when God's talking to you. You better give him that watch. You better go find him. He's going to leave. You better go find him. I run back in the sanctuary and hunt him down. I didn't even know him. I didn't know him. Found him. Said, man, God told me to just give you that. Just honor. You just honor those kind of things. Does that make any sense? All right. I'm telling you, it's huge. Number 4, the law of sowing and reaping. Bishop Jakes talked a little bit about this. The law of sowing and reaping, you reap what you sow, more than you sow, and later than you sow. When you give, it'll be given back. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. When you learn how to sow, when you learn how to tithe, when you learn how to do these things, and you give, whatever you give away will come back to you. It can, of course, the tithe is financial, and that's a key. But you know what? I can remember somebody years ago. They were like, I can't figure out why they were coming to me legitimately. They were like, I can't figure out why people aren't nice to me. I said, well, do you want the truth? Yeah, I want the truth. I said, okay, here it is. Because you're mean. You're mean. Oh, I'm not mean. I said, you are. People think you're mean. And the way you come across, and they don't think you are. I'm not saying they think you are. I'm telling you, you are. You are mean. I don't like talking to you because I think you're going to snap at me. And I'm walking on eggshells. And it's ridiculous. But that's why. And I don't know if they ever took the advice. I don't know where they are anymore. Maybe they're nice. Maybe they're still mean and haven't figured it out. But what you sow kindness. What you sow into a relationship, you can expect back. Train yourself to be a giver. I'm not going to spend a lot more time on this. Train yourself. Bless people unexpectedly. Tip people that you would not ordinarily tip at odd places. Carry some 1s or a 5 with you with the intent, today I'm going to leave somebody a tip. The McDonald's drive-through person. I gave one to a Cinnabon worker one time. I said, can you take tips? They're like, I don't know. Nobody's ever asked. I said, well, here, you're getting one today. You know? Treat people well. Sow things that have a value. David in the scripture said, Lord, I don't want to give you anything that costs me nothing. I don't want to do that. The first time I really remember Lisa and I giving what at the time was a breakthrough offering for us was out at my dad's church back. We'd only been married maybe a year or two. Best I remember. And they were doing this project. They wanted to build a prayer garden. And so they had this, I don't know if it's still, they put up this kind of like a granite statue, a granite wall that was like a tree in the garden, and you could put people's names of people that you wanted to memorialize or people you were praying for, and you could buy a leaf on that tree, and it would be in the prayer garden. People would come and pray over those names that are up there. And it was $200. Well, that was like 1981. $200, you might as well ask for $5,000. You know, Steve and Lisa didn't have, you know, a little one-bedroom apartment, and you know, things just weren't good. And we were in school and all of that. And the Lord said, I want you to buy a leaf on that tree. It's like, well, do they have an installment plan? Can I get it on credit? Do you take credit cards? But we did it. My point is we did it. We sowed a seed, and something, I mean, you know, whatever that's been, 30-something years later, I still remember that was a defining moment. Would I obey God? Sometimes giving is a defining moment. That God tells you to do something, and it's a defining moment. Am I going to obey that? Whether or not, I don't know what all God had for me, but when He told me to give that watch away in that sanctuary, that was a defining moment. That I had to decide, am I a giver? Am I a giver? I told you I was going to tell some stories tonight. We were at a Christian conference, a well-known faith teacher many, many years ago, probably back in the 80s too. And I can remember, I probably told this story while I was preaching some, but I remember walking out of that meeting, and the meeting was over, and there's a group of about 10 people, and they're standing around, and they're just praying, loud and in the Spirit and interceding. And I mean, it's like, wow, somebody must be dying here. I mean, they're really going at it. That's great. And there's kind of an usher standing there behind them, and I went over and I said, what's going on? What are they praying for? He said, oh, that lady in red over there, she needs a refrigerator, and they're asking God to bless her. Okay? Well, there's about 12 of us standing around. Why don't we all give about $50, and she's got a refrigerator? He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. So why are we praying about something we've already got answers to? I don't understand. And, I guess he thought I was just a kid that didn't know anything. But it's that giving spirit. It's that spirit of that we want to put ourselves in position. And when you give, the law of reciprocity kicks in. And it'll come back. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. He'll give you things you didn't know were coming. He'll give you sweatless victories. He'll give you some things you work for, and promotions and bonuses and commissions, and all of that stuff will come as well. But then there'll be some people you'll meet that'll just say, hey, I got this business idea. Hey, what about this? Hey, I know somebody who knows somebody. The law of sowing and reaping, which takes me to the next point, the law of association. This is more important than you think it is. Law of association. We are greatly influenced, whether we like it or not, by those closest to us. It's true. People, I've told my staff, I've told those that are close to me, I've taught it even to elders over the time, others, that when you're close, when you have access, when you've been given access, you have to watch what you say. Because that person may take what you say because they've allowed you into a circle that they may go act on what you say. You can't be flippant. You got to think through your words. When you get in a circle maybe you're president of your company or vice president or whomever, and they're taking your counsel. You got to realize, man, you're associating in that. Jim Rohn, that's a name I didn't put down on there. I don't think. Did I? Is it on there? Jim Rohn, man, you can read Success Magazine. Is a great magazine. He has written. He used to write lots of articles and just things. Just you can go researching. He said this: we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. You want to know what your life is like? Look at the 5 people you spend the most time with. You might need to change some associations. You might need to just take somebody to lunch. You might need to take somebody out and just say, I want to pick your brain. I'm not, I know you're willing to give me some time here, and I want to ask you some questions. You become that average. But before I move on, let me just say this. It is, who are you connected to spiritually? Who do you listen to? Who do you want access to? God's going to, here's what I sense, God wants to increase your level of associations. Don't take business advice from people who have failed multiple times in business and aren't running a business now. That's not who you want your business advice from. Find somebody who's been successful at starting businesses, take them to breakfast, to lunch, whatever it might be, and ask them questions. It's just, all you're doing is hearing my heart. Don't ever take somebody to lunch without a notebook. It's insulting. If you're coming and I don't want to use myself. If you're taking your VP of sales out to lunch because you want to learn how to be a VP of sales, you better have a notebook. Well, I'll put it in my phone. Personally, I'm not speaking for these guys that spoke last week. I don't want to see your phone. Because I don't know, you might be checking your text. And you're asking for 90 minutes of my time, right? Am I speaking truth? I'm just telling you, it's all about honor. It's about honor. When you don't treat situations right, because God wants to increase your association. Mine and Lisa's life, and I think she would tell you this, fundamentally changed when we got under Pastor Winston. It changed the life of this church. It changed the speakers we had in. It changed the persona. It opened doors for me to meet other people. When we asked him, he had come here 1 or 2 times, Lisa, maybe on the second time. We were looking for a pastor. We needed somebody that we could just count on to speak into our life. And we had talked to different ones, and it just wasn't right. And through that, going back to that story, that guy told me about him. I met him. We went, before we ever asked him, we went up there. And the guy that introduced me to him, or got me introduced to him, he would come to me and he's like, what's going on that you would spend 5 hours, almost 6 hours driving each way to come hear him for 1 hour? I'm like, he's got something I need. It doesn't matter. I'd drive 10 hours. I'd fly. I took my son on an 8-hour car trip to go hear him down in Georgia because he had something I wanted. I knew there was something in him that I needed. I didn't know about all his business experience. I didn't know he's considered an apostle of business. And so up in our office, after I think the second time he was here, the Lord had said, you need to ask him to be your pastor. So after the service was over, before he left, we asked him, we said, we got something we want to ask you. And he looked at me and like, okay, I'm really nervous. And I said, Lisa and I have been praying and we need a pastor and we'd really like to come under you. And he looked at both of us and he said, I was wondering what was taking both of you so long to ask me that question. I'm sorry, I didn't know. And he's allowed us to be a son in his ministry. That's not a term that we use a lot, but they do. And we don't do everything the way they do. They run their ministry different in some areas than what we run ours and all that. That's not what it was about. I needed that spirit of faith. I needed that spirit of faith that he possesses. And I go in there and I got notebooks filled with his teaching. You look on my bookshelf, down there, I don't even know. I bet I got minimum 30. I probably have 40 of his DVDs series, not just one, series there that I listened to. And now, that was before podcasts were real popular. I listened to the podcast. I listened to other people as well. But my association with him has opened so many doors that God just divinely brought about. Don't miss that law of association. Who do you associate with? Who do you listen to? One, you ought to associate with your church. This is primary. You got to have an association. When we do things here, and I'm talking spiritually now, and this is not just business related, but how you honor the things that we do here. I know you can't come to everything. I can't come to everything. But don't dishonor it. Don't talk about, well, I don't know why they're doing that. You just stepped into the realm of dishonor. There may be things you don't know. Sometimes, people today, they talk a lot about things they don't know anything about. Right? So you've got to know the law of association. Let me go real quick. Number 6, the law of believing. Here's what it says. What we believe at our core, we have the opportunity to receive. The Bible clearly teaches us our job is not to figure out how something's going to happen. Our job is to believe that it will. It's to believe that it will. He said all things are possible to him who believes. Not that you got to figure out, well, it's going to do this, God's going to do that. He might do it some way you don't have any idea. God's talking to us about some big projects here at the church. My job is to believe He can do it. My brain, my natural man wants to, go back and go, well, how's He going to do this? And we could do that, and we could do that. And there's things we're going to put in place. I get it. But I believe God can do it. Yes. What we believe at our core, we have the opportunity to receive. We act in a manner consistent with our beliefs. Our job is to be the believer. I want to develop my life that when I need to believe something big, my spirit is ready to accept it. Amen. That's why I believe what most people tell me. And I know that's contrary to the, but we used to, I remember hearing a preacher a long time ago, he said, I'm trying to train my spirit. So if you came to me and say, Pastor, the most unique thing happened. God took me out of my house and He gave me wings and I flew all the way down Billtown Road and I turned on Schaefer and I was flying all the way here and God just supernaturally brought me in here and now I'm here and I didn't even have to drive. Okay. I know he said one time that Philip was translated, so maybe he translated you. I don't want to discount everything just because I don't want my spirit, I don't want my nature to be that of a doubter. I want it to be that of a believer. If you tell me you're going to make $2 million with your barbecue thing in the next 5 years, I'm going to go, yeah, man, I believe you can do it. I believe you can do that. It's happened for other people. And so what am I doing? I'm not just being naive. I'm trying to train my spirit. Here's the thing. If there are areas that you want to work on and it's tempting to to just find all the reasons why you can't do it. And I want to encourage you that you can do things despite what your history might say about you, despite what you have experienced in the past, despite that you've been through hardships, you've dealt with this, and this happened to you, and you were raised a certain way. That's what he was saying earlier about even based on our experiences and all of that, our beliefs are so much based on that. But you know what? You can get up tomorrow and you can do something different despite what has happened in your past. I was 23 years old when that company went through bankruptcy. I could have let that, what am I going to do? How am I going to figure it out? I don't know what I'm going to do. Or you can say, you know what? That happened and it was bad. But tomorrow I get up and I get to make decisions not based on that. I heard a guy speak one time and he said, sometimes you got to take a so what mentality. So it happened. So what? Is that going to cripple you for the rest of your life? Is that going to happen? Is that what it's going to do? Yes, it was bad. So what? So it happened. So you got fired. So you lost that job. So that didn't. So what? I'm going to get up tomorrow and I can change that thing because I am a believer and I believe God has something good. And if that didn't happen that way, then I believe it can happen another way. And you got to take that mentality. Change. So you didn't act right before. You can act right again tomorrow. You can start with a whole new process by being a believer. Does that make sense? The last thing I'll share with you, the seventh law, is called the law of recognition. The law of recognition says this: everything you need in your life is already in your life, just waiting for your recognition of it. Of all the things that I've learned, all of these are important. I'm not sure if one is more important than another, but I saved this one for last because you need to discover the gifts and opportunities that are in your life. And the way that you do that is through recognition. I read this book years ago from Mike Murdoch called The Law of Recognition. It doesn't matter to me if you get it or not. This is one of the books that the Lord told me to buy multiple copies, and I give this book out to different ones when the Lord tells me to do it. That one, and there's another one as well. But there's things, if it's already in my life, then I just need to recognize it. I need to just recognize it. What do I need to recognize? Here are some things. You need to recognize the voice of the Holy Spirit. It's in your life. Holy Spirit talking to you? You need to be a giver. You need to go help that person. That person needs an encouraging word. Recognize it. And then act on it. Wait. That's the Holy Spirit. I know that voice. The recognition of your assignment. We learned a little bit about that last week. The recognition of an uncommon. Mike Murdoch uses that word a lot. I love the word uncommon. I don't want to be like everybody else. Recognition of an uncommon mentor. Somebody who's mentoring you. You got to recognize that in your life. Recognition of an uncommon protege, somebody that you're mentoring. There are people God's going to bring into your life that you're supposed to mentor. Recognize when they're uncommon. Recognition of a moment of uncommon faith. There's just times when God's going to tell you, you got special faith for that. Special faith. Recognize that. How many times, one of the things that will happen to you, I'm declaring over you, because I think it should happen to you, is you're going to be at certain places and you're going to strike up a conversation with a cashier or somebody in the aisle, and you will find as a believer, people will open up to you and will tell you random, crazy stuff. That's an assignment. Recognize it. God brought me to Kroger not to buy bread, but to pray for this person that is telling me that they're battling cancer. How in the world did I get in the bread aisle with the person who I've never met that wants to tell me their life story? Because God sent you there on an assignment, and you have a moment of uncommon faith to pray for them. Recognize your dominant source of favor. Where does it come from? Recognition of a God-inspired idea. Anybody ever had an idea and then you just let it go? I can think of numerous times driving down the road, and I'd point out to Lisa, that's a great spot for a restaurant. 3 months later, boom, restaurant shows up there. Man, that's a great place for a men's clothing store. Boom, 3 months later, there's the clothing store. Those were ideas that I just passed on. I'm not saying God told me to do them, but whatever they were there. Recognition of golden opportunities that come your way. Recognition of financial deliverer that God sends into your life. This next one, I'm not saying it because of me, but I'm telling you, when you know this, and I realize I'm teaching this at our church, but I just told you the story of mine and Lisa's. You got to have a recognition of a man of God in your life. Amen. Just a fact. That is true. There's just things. When Pastor Winston says it to me and Lisa, I don't cock my head and go, really, you think so? It's because my man of God said it. He prayed over us one time, and he said, y'all leaving tonight? I said, no, we're leaving in the morning. He said, before you get home, something you've been believing for is going to be released. Wow, okay. I knew what, I think I knew what it was. Right there coming down 65, right there, I can't think of the exit right off because wherever that Portillo's hot dog place is, right there off of 65, my phone rings. The thing we've been believing for. A lady called, said, all that stuff we've been talking about, I'm ready to do all that stuff, and that thing was released. You know why I think? Not because I'm so good. My man of God spoke something into my life, and we took it. Recognition of the uncommon dream that energizes you. What energizes you? What dream makes you go, man, that's what I want to do? He says in this book, you got to have the law of recognition because you got to recognize a fool. Recognition of the seed God has given you to sow. You might have a seed God's talking to you about sowing. Recognize it. Recognition of a harvest God sends to you. In that chapter, he talks about recognizing everything as a harvest. And if you just recognize that, it opens the door. Your gratitude opens the door for other blessings to come. You got in a car tonight, that's a harvest. You had gas to put in your car, that's a harvest. You got here, you're sitting in a room that's paid for in a $2 million building, that's a harvest. Everything, when you start recognizing everything that you have in your life as a harvest, recognition of a golden connection. There are some people that are sent into your life not to be the one that actually blesses you, but connect you to your blessing. Does that make sense? I've seen that in our life. I've been that. God's allowed me to be that. I don't know. I mean, I told you I don't know much anymore. But I'm learning. But sometimes what I don't know, I know somebody who does. And a lot of my helping people is I connect them to the right person. And I get asked a lot, you know a good CPA? Yeah, I do. Know a good attorney? Yeah, I do. Know a good... I'm not any of those things, and neither did I stay in a Holiday Inn Express last night. So I don't know. I'm not that smart, but I know people who do know. And if I don't know, I know people who know people. I know people who know people. I'm just telling you. You understand what I'm saying? There's golden connections. Recognize the gift of time. Recognize specific anointings. Recognize those who have been assigned to you. And then recognition of the Bible as your master handbook. Good stuff. Good stuff. When I started recognizing my harvest, when I started recognizing the man of God, when I started recognizing golden connections, when I started recognizing and then honor that needed to be there, man, life changes. I get up every day happy. I don't get up depressed. I get up with joy. I get up saying, Holy Spirit, have your way today. The kingdom is taking care of all this today. Do I have issues and problems? Absolutely, we all do. But the kingdom's going to take care of it. I recognize what God has done in this ministry, and I'm grateful for it. To be on this property, to have what we have. I talked to a pastor today who was struggling some, and I was able to encourage him a little bit, and he encouraged me about some things too. But I recognize that. I recognize those gifts that are there. Take this stuff. It's only going to be as good as you choose to implement it. And whatever that area is in your life, if you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to eat healthier, you're trying to get your finances in order, pay attention. Pay attention to your finances. You better know where your money is. You better figure it out. You better get a budget. Don't spend so much money or make more money. Amen. One or the other. Figure those things out. And I'm telling you, when you do, you're going to wake up. I want you to wake up every day with joy because you're doing your assignment. You're doing the thing you were created to do. You're doing the thing. And it's not perfect. You're always figuring it out. I'm still figuring it out. But you get to get up and go do your assignment, whatever that might be. It can be your family. It can be your kids, whatever. But God is going to help you recognize that assignment and know it, and you're going to have joy while you do it. You're going to live a next level life. Is that good? All right. Thank you. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for...
I trust this teaching from Next Level Life has helped you, as our goal is to encourage you to pursue your dreams, your goals, your passions, and how am I going to live life at that next level. So I hope you enjoyed it. Join us next week again as we share some more thoughts with you on how you are going to enjoy your next level. We'll see you next week.